Yeah, thanks for the opportunity for me to come and give an update on South Dakota waterfowl status for 2012. It should be another banner year for waterfowl production and duck hunting and goose hunting in this state. As Tom alluded earlier, the goose population is doing very well, and I'll go over some of the details of that in a little bit here. But we'll just be going over some of the habitat conditions and waterfowl population estimates for the eastern Dakotas. Just as an introduction here, 2012 was actually the highest reported North American duck population ever counted. It was just over 48 million ducks continentally in North America. So ducks are doing very, very well right now. They're coming off of basically a really, really wet period, and production's been very good. Last year's production was probably one of the best in the last 30 years, so naturally you're going to have some carryover. Just driving across the landscape anecdotally here this spring, production's been very good. We had some good we had open winter, but we did have carryover water from last fall. We've had some good brood conditions. We've had some nice dry, warm weather for brood survival. So it should be another banner year. Just a slide here indicating the different dabbling duck populations in the eastern Dakotas. I was unable to get the strata broken down yet from the service, so the estimates are for eastern, north, and South Dakota. But as you can see, we're doing very well. If you look at the last column there for long-term average, we're well above long-term average in all the categories. The one to really note there again is blue-winged teal. Similar to last year, we actually increased blue-winged teal, which I didn't think was probably possible, but we're just shy of 5 million blue-winged teal in eastern, north, and South Dakota this year. Mallards, which is the one that a lot of people are definitely interested in, are pretty much on par. Pintails did go down somewhat, and that was because of the loss of temporary water from an open winter. Gadwall is another one that's, folks definitely hunt a lot around here. Do a little better in deeper wetlands, and those are the ones that aren't drawing down quite as fast, so they're showing a population response to that. But as you can see, the dabbling ducks are doing very well in South Dakota and eastern North Dakota this year. A few of the more prominent divers, redheads, canvasbacks, and lesser scaup, doing very well, all three well above long-term average. Redheads are doing very well across Central Flyway, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to get actually a third redhead in the bag, and this will be the second year the Flyway is going to attempt to do that. Bottom line is we have 12.4 million ducks breeding in eastern North and South Dakota, down 1%, so basically on par from 2011. And 162% above the long-term average of just over 4.7 million. So a lot of ducks, and if you can imagine that 48.5 million, which was the continental population, 12.5 of them are breeding in eastern North and South Dakota, just highlighting the continental importance that the prairie pottwall region in the Dakotas has. Very large percentage of the ducks continentally are actually produced and breed here. Canada geese, breeding index is up roughly 16% from 2011, just shy of 270,000. If you're a Canada goose hunter, this is definitely the time to get out and pursue the geese, because there's a pile of them out there. Harvest in 2011 was 137,000, up 11% from 2010, with nearly identical numbers of goose hunters. So the guys that are out there are becoming really efficient at it. We're not really getting any more hunters, but their bag is going up. The bag was just shy of 10 birds per hunter per season for the entire season this year, which is very high and good. We're trying to encourage Canada goose harvest. So, excuse me. Just a little highlight on a banding program that we're doing right now. I've been involved in the last several weeks. The Central Flyway is trying to get a better handle on population and movements, and actually harvest rates and survival to get an idea of how we can better rein in this population. So the Central Flyway states have all basically just agreed to band at the same time for a number of years. And as of this morning, I have to change my slide. My guys just texted me, and they just banded 100 birds this morning. So we have about 1,700 birds that we've banded in eastern South Dakota this morning. We're going to be continuing to band for the next 3 or 4 years. And then hopefully, once those band returns start coming in, we're going to be able to get a better idea on the flyway population and survival rates and harvest rates on these birds. Because that's one of the questions we don't know is as a flyway, what is the survival and harvest rates of these birds? Because if it's very, very high, then it's going to be harder for us to bring the population down. So we're trying to get an idea of what that survival and harvest rate is. South Dakota duck hunters, we had roughly the same number of duck hunters, just over 13,000 duck hunters in 2011. Harvest was up. We harvested over 260,000 ducks in 2011. But as you can see, as I indicated in the graph there, we did have a steep decline in duck hunters from the late 90s, and it seems to have basically leveled off. We bounced around between 13 and 14,000, but it hasn't really changed that much in the last several years, which is good, because that precipitous decline was very troubling. A little bit about habitat. In the eastern Dakotas, we did lose about half our pond numbers in the May pond count, about 46% down. It's still way above long-term average, which is good, and that was basically due to the loss of temporary water from an open winter. But we still do have fairly good holdover water and carryover water in eastern South Dakota and North Dakota. The grassland habitat is also definitely concerned. We're losing large amounts of grassland habitat across eastern North and South Dakota. We're losing about 2% of native pasture annually. This is a really big year for CRP expirations. We're going to lose potentially over 200,000 acres of CRP, which is 20% of our CRP. We do have other programs that are enrolling constantly, so we're trying to stem that tide, and we're trying to kind of hold on to 1 million acres, with our fingernails. But we may dip below 1 million acres this year, depending on how re-enrollments go and how the continuous CRP goes. Positive note is we did get 120,000 acres of new continuous CRP allocated to us recently. That's available. Whether it gets allocated or whether it gets used is going to depend on a landowner acceptance of the program. But wetland consolidation and drainage, as you all know, is escalating extremely rapidly in South Dakota and marching westward. I'm stationed over in Brookings, and you can see every day new tile lines, new drainage ditches going in the landscape. That will likely impact future waterfowl breeding conditions once things start drying back down. Some of the things, the large waterfowl populations in part are due to these hyper wet conditions, and once things return to normal, I think potentially we have a setup for reduced waterfowl populations. Any questions? I can definitely get those numbers for you.
You did do some studies and surveys.
We do have strata for the Western Dakotas. I didn't include them in here, but I can certainly get those numbers to you.